All right, welcome everybody to another episode of It's Okay to Feel. This is NAMI Orange County's podcast that talks about issues surrounding mental health. And so, my name is Ed Portillo. I'm the program manager here at NAMI Orange County in Orange County, California. It stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And what we do is help families, individuals, and parents that are affected by mental illness through classes, mentoring programs, a 24-hour warm line, resource line, and other things that we do throughout Orange County that are all free. Everything that we offer is free. And you can go to our website at namioc.org to get more information, namioc.org. Also, if you wanted to get in touch with us, you can always email us at itsokaytofeel@namioc.org. It's okay to feel at namioc.org. We love to hear your feedback, especially on this topic. This is something that Dave and I had a conversation, and I thought, let's start recording. Let's talk about this in a little bit more in depth and put a podcast episode about this. And so this is kind of organic. We're going to have a kind of an organic conversation. I usually have a list of questions that I go over, but I decided that this would be another episode where I would say, let's just talk. Let's just have a conversation about essentially there's a part of the older generation, the new generation, and understanding each other and understanding empathy. And so there's an aspect of parenting, there's an aspect of understanding, why things happen and understanding why people make choices the way that they make the choices, and what is our responsibility to react to that, and how do we react to those situations, especially when they're um, not decisions that we wouldn't make ourselves. And so Dave is a crisis counselor. He's back. He was in a previous episode last year, and we're welcoming him back. He's a family-to-family teacher. He also has an organization called Make Somebody Great Today, and he does a bunch of things for the community. He really enjoys reaching out to people and helping them in their crisis situations. So, welcome, Dave.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It looks like we're turning a phone call into a podcast.
Exactly, exactly. So why don't we just jump into it right now? Like, let's talk about the kind of like the thesis that you have, because I know that this has come through lived experience, through the experiences that you have with your clients. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is all about firsthand experience that I have with conversations with, parents or the older generation or young adults or teens, children. It could be dynamics between parents and a child, or just someone from the older generation and the younger generation in general. And we all know that generalities are not helpful. Unfortunately, they're out there, and there can be some truth in generalities that we can glean from to help these various situations. But I think a lot of what I'm going to say is most people will agree that they're having this similar experience, this experience where the younger generation and the older generation, there's like this gap. There's like this relational gap. I was talking to a girl who reached out on a Zoom call just like this, and she was going through some stuff. She's a college student. She's actually a graduate. She's looking at graduate programs now, and I was just talking to her about her journey and also some of her, stressors and some of things that she deals with on a daily basis. So I asked her. I said, so where do you feel, most inside, or when you have interactions with the older generation, do you feel valued and loved? Do you feel judged? Do you feel supported? And she's like, oh, I feel judged. And I go, okay. I said, what about your peers? Do you feel judged by your peers? No. I said, what about church? Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes I feel judged at church. I said, well, do you feel judged by God? No, actually, I don't. And then I asked, who's your number one supporter? And she said, my dad. And I said, that's interesting because earlier you felt judged by the older generation. Yet your number one supporter is your dad. So I asked, well, why do you feel supported by your dad? Why is he number one? Do you know how many dads in this world would smile and just shout for joy if they knew that their 25-year-old daughter said, my dad's my number one supporter? And you know what she said? Because he just listens and he doesn't judge me. So one of the things that I'm seeing outside of this conversation that I just made reference to is kind of this judgment, this disconnect between the older and the younger generation. And the older generation is grasping for answers. They really want to know, how can I better communicate with my child? How can I better understand my child? And unfortunately, some of them are coming up with their own conclusions. And you've heard some of these labels before. Oh, they're woke, or they're entitled, or if they would just go through some pain and struggling and some trials, they'd be stronger. If you watch social media, and if you listen to many people from the older generation talk, in fact, there's even language that talks about the World War II generation, the greatest generation. They're so proud. And there's many reasons for that generation to be proud. So the people from that generation, or the next generation right after that, which would be my parents. So I would say my grandparents were the World War II generation, and then my parents were right after that. They think that, well, the reason why the younger generation is having such a tough time developing resilience is because they just haven't been through tough times. They just haven't been through these trials and these tests and these tough times to make them stronger. They submit that, well, I went through tough times and that's what made me strong. My grandfather would say, or people from my parents' generation would say, well, my dad or my uncle, he served in World War II. He fought in the South Pacific, and that's why he's so strong. Or my grandmother went through the Depression. That's what made her strong. So it's logical to think, well, then the next generation, you refer to them as the new generation, Ed, needs to go through trials and tribulations to be stronger. But one of the things that we're seeing is that for many of these new generation or younger generation, is that when there's trials and tribulation, they actually spiral downward. And they start having a tougher time. And I meet with these young adults and I meet with these teenagers, and I'm getting answers when I ask, how do you feel about yourself? Or can you tell me what's going on? I'm getting answers like, I'm lost. I don't know who I am. I feel worthless. I'm better off dead. No one understands me. I don't have any friends. I can't. All this confidence and low self-worth themes, they work together. They tie in together. But the older generation thinks, well, they're not developing resilience, and they do need to be empowered to develop resilience. And there is a resilience story here with the young adults. But I submit that the reason why the older generation achieved more success and developed more resilience when they went through trials like World War II, like the Depression, and all the things that go along with what they had to do growing up without electronic devices and all these shortcuts that we have now, is that they knew who they were.
Mm.
When the younger generation says, I'm lost, I feel worthless, I don't know who I am, that's an identity crisis.
Well, let's unwrap that a little bit more. Talk about this issue of identity. What is it
So I'm still excavating,
yeah.
like, where's this coming from? Why are so many young adults saying, like, I feel worthless. I feel lost. I don't remember talking like that when I was growing up. Certainly when I transitioned from college to my first job, I was terrified. I was scared. How am I going to buy a house? How am I going to provide for my family? I had jobs I didn't like, but I still had to go to make money. And there's so you wrestle with these things, right? But I never really felt lost. I asked my dear friend one time that I grew up with, just recently, I asked him, you know, when you were growing up with 5 kids in your house and 4 dads in a very difficult situation with trauma and various dads and only having like one pair of Levi's for an entire school year with holes in it and you know kind of the economic status that you were experiencing, I asked him, did you ever feel worthless? And he said no. So somehow he was able to still maintain his human identity without having feelings of worthlessness from his low economic status and a lack of having a father in the house and having siblings from other dads in that same house, which can produce, you know, a lot of identity confusion.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, those 5 kids are really close. I know that family really well. And so the younger generation right now, I'm getting more of this. I ran into a child who's now like almost 30 that I used to coach for soccer when the girl was like in her teens. I ran into her the other day at the park and I asked her what's going on and she told me all this really cool stuff and she seemed to be doing really well. And then when I kind of dug a little deeper, I told her what I do now with my coaching and my counseling. And then she goes, "Wow, that's awesome." She said, "But I must tell you, I feel lost." She said, "I feel lost." So I'm here today, Ed, to tell you that the answer to the big question with the younger generation is identity.
Mm-hmm.
How can we remind the younger generation of who they really are? How can we make them stronger? How can we build them up? You know, there's actually some simple tools. And the young adults will tell you the top of their list is listening.
Yeah.
You want to change somebody's life? Listen. You know, my friend Fawn Parrish wrote a book called Honor, What Love Looks Like. And in her book, she says, sometimes I ask the question, have we lost the art of getting coffee with someone? Hospitality is powerful, friends. When's the next barbecue? Keep it simple. You know, sometimes it's more about what you do than what you say.
Mm-hmm.
What about kindness? You want to make somebody strong? Be kind. Be a good listener. And Ed, you and I present together on these various knowledge forums, and you'll hear me talk about the power of creativity and the power of dreams and goals. You know, I can be with it. I work at Crisis Text Line if we haven't brought that up. That's going to be 741-741 for those of you that might be struggling with suicidal thoughts or urges to self-harm. We welcome your messages at 741-741. You know, my greatest tool in supporting someone who's in crisis is creativity.
Mm.
I talk to young adults who are suicidal, and then I ask, what's your dreams and goals? Oh, I want to be a doctor. See, the dream's still there, Ed.
Yeah.
And Frankl, and I've got his book right here. Many of you are probably familiar with Frankl's work, but he talked about how people survived the Holocaust because they had purpose. And I submit it's because they knew who they were. We must help the younger generation develop purpose and passion and
Yeah.
come alongside them and let them help them to achieve their dreams and goals. And you know, we don't just see people, we celebrate them.
Mm.
Back to my friend Fawn Parrish, who wrote Honor, What Love Looks Like. She says, you know, we put crowns on kids' heads and we help them to grow into them. You know, the message there is we put the crown on them first. Often we look at behavior and I talk to parents and they talk to me about their child's behavior. But often the behavior is actually a symptom.
Mhm.
And we must find the root cause of this behavior. That could be a huge stepping stone for a parent to begin to excavate and learn more about where's this behavior coming from. When parents call me to ask for help with their child, I say, before we get started, let me tell you something. The parents who reach out and ask the question, what can I do differently, are the parents that achieve the most success.
Yeah.
These
That,
are tools, folks.
that
We got
makes
to
a lot of
reframe these stories. We need to be less judgmental about the younger generation. If you're 60 like me and you're part of the older generation,
yeah, no, I there's a
and these
couple
kids, they
things.
want to talk.
The listening is such an important thing. I think you can probably have a whole college course
Right.
on listening and how it's so important to just hold those person's thoughts, and you don't even have to have an answer to it. You can just
That's right.
listen, you know?
That's right, Ed. You don't have to have all the answers. That's a great point. Let me reach for a book. This is called Talk to Me. It's written by a professional hostage negotiator. You know why it says talk to me? Because when she goes into a hot situation, in a hostage situation, she wants the person who, the offender, if you will, to talk. I asked law enforcement officers, when you have a suspect, do you want him to clam up and talk about, their rights to an attorney, or do you want him to talk? Oh, we want him to talk. I talk to detectives. Well, what do you want these suspects to do? Talk or clam up? Oh, we want him to talk. Absolutely. We want our loved ones to talk. We want our children to talk. We want everyone to talk, because when we talk, when we listen to people talking, we learn about them. My friend taught me on my podcast that I used to have. In fact, they're still on my Facebook page, Make Someone Great Today. Or actually, that's on Facebook, so I think it says Dave Dickin. But she said, we must listen to learn.
Right.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, going back to the issue of identity, and, this is kind of a commentary on our culture a little bit, but
It is. I'm going to
I
write the, go
feel,
ahead. Yeah.
I feel like there's not really a purpose that is in popular culture. It's almost like it's meandering. It's like there isn't any purpose when you kind of look at, like, what are the heroes you're looking up to? What are the television shows that you're
That's a good point.
using? I think it's, if you look at those aspects, you can kind of see how a lot of people feel like they don't have any purpose, versus the older generation who had a lot of things that were kind of like instilled in society that were encouraging them to find their purpose, or, you know, go after certain things.
Yeah. No, look, our society, for many, what's being modeled is solving our problems through force. There's a lot of movements out there that want to advance their cause by force. There's, in my opinion, and others agree and develop this whole story on, there's like a false masculinity out there where everybody's got to be tough and we have to fight back and fight for our rights and march forward. We see this in politics, trying to drive your cause forward by force. And look, bullying comes sometimes from this false masculinity. Or like, yeah, I don't want to get too much on that right now, but you brought up culture. Many of the themes in culture is dehumanizing.
Right.
Politics is dehumanizing. So I ask people, why are you getting involved in politics, this dehumanizing world that tears you down? That's why so many people don't like social media, or they don't like their children being on social media, because it's tear down. It's dehumanizing. Parents, if you've tuned in, humanize your child. Humanize yourself if you're suffering. Ed and I just had a knowledge forum earlier this week, and we actually encouraged people that were struggling to humanize themselves. I tell young adults, be nice to yourself, spoil yourself, treat yourself. I was on a self-care call with some other providers. And of course, the females are so good at this. Oh, I put makeup on my face. I got my nails done. I went down and got a massage, and we had a ladies' night out. I mean, they're just all over it. Celebrate each other, friends. Humanize. Model humanizing. Model listening. But let's go back to what we've been talking about. How can we remind these young adults of their true identity? How can we help them to feel valued and loved? Step one is listen. Step two, be less judgmental. Be gentle. Be kind. I hear people ask the question, I get this question all the time, should I use tough love? There's themes out there that say things like, well, the reason why the kids are feeling the way they do today is this gentle parenting. I don't see that. I work with young men in crisis. Most of it's actually not parenting. Most of it is the interpretation of a negative event or negative events, plural. Abandonment, neglect, foster care experiences. If it is the parent, if I do have a young adult that I'm supporting and I see where the parent is a contributing factor, it's abuse.
Mm.
I don't have one client or one young adult that I'm working with, and I say to myself, oh, the parents were too gentle. Never.
Mm. Yeah, it's about
I don't know how
connection.
we're leaping from gentleness to these high thoughts of suicide. That hasn't been demonstrated from the shows and podcasts that I hear on this gentle parenting story.
Yeah, it's about connection.
It is about connection, Ed, 100%. And what disrupts connection? Judgment. What enhances connection? Listening and being non-judgmental and loving people for who they are and accepting people for who they are. And all these negative labels. I ask people, what entitles you? What qualifies you to put these labels on these groups of people? I don't get it. We must be good listeners. Maybe we should just change this podcast into, listening or whatever, right? I've probably said it 30 times, but that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And you know
Well,
what? Your loved one or your child or the young adult you're supporting will feel cared for when you listen.
mhm.
And that will speak to their value story. I was leading a group. I lead a group every Thursday night in Fullerton, actually. And last week we had discussion questions from the curriculum. And of course, I always go outside the curriculum just to, create discussion. So I asked, how do you know if someone cares for you? And like 6 people had a comment about that. It just totally like poked them with, hey, I want to speak to this. They were all over it. Some of the people that hadn't said anything all night were talking about feeling cared for. Ed, what we're talking about can change someone's life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This might sound simple, but it's valuable and it works.
Well, and a lot of times it requires individuals to change their strategy, change the way they communicate.
That exactly, that's
If
the whole
you
point.
if you're looking at, even our family to family curriculum, we have a section where we talk about I statements, communication. And people aren't used to saying that. People aren't used to talking that way. Like, I feel this way. I don't like it when you do this. Instead of saying you statements. Like,
Right.
if you would have taken out the
Well, actually,
trash.
what you're saying, sorry to interrupt it, but I just have kind of a way to help you reframe this. But when I talk to young adults, I say, how does that make you feel?
Uh-huh.
So Ed, you really prompted me right there. So I asked these young, like right out of family to family, how does that make you feel? So here's another example, Ed. So I'll sit at the kitchen table and I got mom and a 25-year-old daughter. And I said to the 25-year-old daughter, well, how does that make you feel? And the 25-year-old will say something, and mom will be like, you're kidding me. I didn't know you felt that way. Now we're talking. We got it going, Ed. So now that's an I statement. Actually, coming, in family to family, the I statements are for the parents or for the supporters. But what I'm talking about is I statements from the peers and the survivors. We want to get those I statements out of these young adults so we can know what's making them tick.
Mm.
I asked a young adult in front of her grandmother how she felt about something. And after she replied, the grandma said, I can't believe you said that after all I've done for you. Look, we want to know how she's feeling if we want to best support her.
Mm.
I asked one teenager, do you feel loved by your parents? And the teenager said, well, sometimes. And the parents were all, what? Are you kidding me? Hey, that's how she feels. Look, I'm not here to take sides. And some parents get frustrated with me because they think I'm siding with their child. No, I'm just helping them be open about their feelings so you can support them. Remember, you called me so I can help you reestablish and build on, that connection, Ed,
Which is the first step.
which is the first step.
People
I'm going to
think
take
that
my
they've
point
been working
further.
on it for so long, but in reality, they've been missing each other.
Yes,
And oftentimes you're the first step.
that's correct. So parents will call me up. Mom will call me up. Oh, my daughter, blah, 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 blah. She does this, she does that. I'll say, okay, let's set up a meeting. So we go meet at the Coffee Bean. We sit outside, and mom repeats herself. Oh, my daughter, blah, blah, blah. She ran away again. She snuck out of the window. She smoked pot. Ah. And then I sit down and I say, okay, well, let me talk to your daughter for a minute. Hi, I'm Dave. Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Tell me about your mom. Oh, she, blah, 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 blah. She always, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll say, okay, tell me about the connection you have with your mom. Or tell me about the relationship you have with your mom. Oh, we don't have one. I say, okay, well, let me talk to your mom for a minute. So the 14-year-old leaves the area for a minute. Mom comes. I said, before we go any further, let me ask you a question. Tell me about your relationship with your daughter. Oh, well, no, we don't have one because she ruined our weekend and blah, blah, blah. There's no connection.
Yeah.
So mom wants the daughter to change her behavior, but there's no connection. That's why she's not listening. Belonging comes before believing, Ed.
Mm.
Belonging comes before believing. So produce and instill a place of belonging. That's why some of these runaways join religious cults, because they feel like they're accepted and they have a sense of belonging. And then they
Yeah.
start believing weird stuff because the belonging came first.
Wow.
So we must produce belonging in our homes and with our children and our adult children. Keep the connection going. Feed that connection, build on that connection. We don't just see people, we celebrate them. And some parents have a hard time celebrating their child when their child's not complying. when their child's dealing with anger management or low resolution skills. I talk to parents a lot about having de-escalation skills. What does de-escalation look like in your house? Oh, we don't have any. Well, who wants to be the first de-escalator? I might be getting a little off topic now, but yeah.
No, I think
Go
it's
ahead.
great. Yeah, what I think I want to touch on too is that, and this could kind of go into connection and go into like your philosophy, is that, tell us about how when parents come to you and say, this, my kid has this issue, I need you to have them stop, do this. I need you to have them like uh keep them accountable, or keep them, there's like a disconnect that you have. I think sometimes when parents try to ask you to fix the problem,
Yeah,
and
they'll do that too. They'll want me to come in and fix. But, I don't serve in that role, and I quickly address that. It actually goes away quite fast because I'm just not going down that road, and I explain that. So I'll ask questions like, well, what's the root cause? When did they get angry? Have you asked your child, why do you get mad? Or, why did you punch a hole in the wall? So we want to ask questions, like I said earlier, even with this, heavy duty like anger stuff. Now, look, there's safety stuff here. I mean, I'm bringing up punching holes in walls. No, I support parents in embracing safety. I work in domestic violence. I work with victims, and I empower them to stay safe. But we can catch this sooner before it becomes escalated like this, with destructive behavior, and we can maintain that connection. Oh, the fruit of a connection, Ed. Yeah. There's so many families out there that would do anything to have a better relationship with their child. And there's answers. And it starts with this listening, with being non-judgmental and understanding, this identity crisis. And back to this disconnect between the older generation and the younger generation. This is another point that I wanted to make, and I'm glad I remembered, and we can probably start to wind down now. Is that the older generation, for many of them, they think if you talk about your feelings and you make statements like, oh, I feel worthless, that you actually make it worse. No. We're learning that talking about it can start to actually validate our real feelings. Feelings are real. That's the title of the show. It's okay to have feelings, right?
yeah,
So feelings are real. So what we can do is we can validate those feelings. And we can ask, so can you tell me what it's like to feel worthless? Parents, adults, if you ask the person you're supporting, whether it's your child or somebody else, it will not make it worse to ask them about their feelings of feeling worthless. You'll actually start to validate their feelings, and they'll open up more, and you'll actually create safe space for your loved one to be open about their feelings if you allow them to talk about this worthlessness. Because some parents dismiss it. How can you feel worthless? We put a roof over your head, and we provide food, and you're going to college, and we pay for it. How could you possibly feel worthless? See, that's judgmental. Really, you feel worthless? Tell me more about that. Where did that come from? I
yeah,
was with a family the other day, and I asked the teenager, what's your biggest challenge? You've got these urges to use that you've acted on. You've got challenges at school. You're suffering from depression. And you talked about your relationship with your parents. Which one is bothering you the most? And the teenage boy said, my relationship with my parents. I saw the mom's body language. She was sitting there with these questions, and I saw her face and I saw her body language, and she was like, "Woo." 2 weeks later, I met with that boy, and I went over that conversation with him. I said, did you see the look on your mom's face when you said the biggest issue is that you've lost trust with your parents because of some of this using? And he said, yeah. I said, let me encourage you. That's a turning point in your relationship with your parents because your mom is now responding to that. I asked him, is your mom doing a better job of listening now and being less judgmental? And he said, absolutely. I said, which direction is her empathy going? Is it going up or down? He said, oh, it's way up now.
Hmm.
We got to have these discussions and we got to have the tough conversations.
And you also have another class that you teach in the Knowledge Forum called helping individuals who have a diagnosis, tips and tools for caregivers and family members. And what I've observed from the people that are there, because a lot of what you say is kind of what we're talking about right now, is kind of reframing things, communication, um, empathy, understanding, making connection, is that a lot of the people that attend, or parents, will take it personally. They'll take it personally that I can't, I guess the way that they see the problem, they see the problem, but they don't really, they think that they're also tied to it. They're also tied there
Oh,
because of
Ed,
their decisions. There's shame there.
yes. If I ask a parent, do you feel like a bad parent? I get yes every time. Do you feel like a bad mom? Oh, absolutely. And you know what I tell that mom? There's not another mom on this earth that would be better than you to take care of your child. I had a mom call me up frustrated, and I know the mom and the son. And she talked about how her son wasn't listening and nothing was working and how he wasn't embracing certain ideas and goals and things. And I said, let me ask you a question. Is there anything or anyone on this earth that can stop you from loving your son with everything you got? And she said, no. I said, Mom, the dad was on the speakerphone as well. I said, Mom, all that energy you just used to say no, I want you to take that energy and go love on your son.
Mhm.
I said, Dad, did you hear what Mom said? He said, oh, yeah. I said, I'm giving you a task. You empower your wife to love on your son with everything she's got. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is powerful stuff.
this is great. I mean, I think again, connection is so important. Listening is so important. To be
It
kind
is
is so important, and understanding that this might be the first step. All the
absolutely.
things that you've done
And it's a
before,
goal, like it's a step and a goal.
right?
Because the goal is connection. Like the step is listening, but the goal is connection. Sorry to interrupt, but I just got a little excited there.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I think that when you're talking about
No,
also give
Ed, this is
yourself
so
grace,
good. The goal is connection, and the step is listening. That's going to
right?
be a Facebook or Instagram post in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
goal
a
is
slide
connection,
too.
and step one is listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom. Let's wrap this bad boy up. We're good, bro.
Well, tell us how we can get in contact with you and your website and everything,
Check
Dave.
out my website, makesomeonegreattoday.com. Here, it's right on my coffee cup.
There we go.
MakeSomeoneGreatToday.com. My friend Carla just did new logos for me, and now we turn them into stickers.
Very
So,
good.
so it's MakeSomeoneGreatToday.com. You'll see the contact information form. You can fill it out, or just send me an email, Dave@MakeSomeoneGreatToday.com. No one reads my emails except me, so it's confidential, and we'll connect you with some resources, or I'll support you directly.
All right, sounds good. Well, we appreciate everyone listening. Again, if you want to know more information on NAMI Orange County, you can go to our website at namioc.org. And we'll be back next week with another episode. But again, make that connection, make that first step. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Ed. Good night, everybody, or good day. It's actually morning. I think they used to film the Tonight Show in the mornings, even though it was at night.
All right, we'll be back next week.
Take care.